Nice to meet you, Matt. Did I see you at the Death of a Unicorn after party at South by Southwest?
That's pretty accurate. I'm pretty
Yeah, okay,
positive.
yeah. I walked in,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know that guy. He's a credit, it's Matt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you there. I was like, oh, cool.
It's funny because I had heard you were there and I never actually saw you. And so I was upset because, I saw the film at Sundance and I would have told you, hey, amazing time, amazing
Oh,
film.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So let's
You
get
know,
into it.
I was lurking near the bar having the unicorn-themed drinks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Next Best Picture podcast, where I'm being joined right now by the writer and director of the film together, Michael Shanks. Michael, thank you so much here for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, in discussing this, what I consider to be a perfect date night of a movie,
Thank you.
I understand that this was born out of your relationship with your wife. Dare I ask in what way?
Yeah. I've been with my partner for 16 years now, and I had this idea, and I told her about it, and she said, "I'm a little upset you're writing this, but it's a good idea, and you should do it." And it comes from this feeling of how kind of scary it can be to fully commit to somebody when you have been together for so long. I haven't been an adult without Louis in my life. We have the same friends, we live in the same house, we breathe the same air. You get to a point where I was worried that I didn't really know who I was without her, that I couldn't tell where I ended and she began, and started to feel like that's really scary to kind of think of yourself as kind of like a part of an incomplete part of a whole because you are so kind of bonded with somebody. And then also the idea of, if you've already committed to sharing a life with somebody, the idea of splitting apart is also terrifying. Like, more so than for my own relationship, like I've observed that in kind of other relationships around me. There's a line early on in the film where Alison's character asks Day's character, are we still together because we love each other or because we're used to each other? And I've seen couples that are just used to each other.
Yeah.
And you just kind of can see that's the life you've committed to, is this kind of just because the idea of splitting apart, would feel as significant as physically kind of tearing yourselves apart because your lives have become so intertwined. And that was really kind of the jumping off point for making something, like kind of like the thematic function of this film. But the other jumping off point was, I want to make a fun, goofy buddy horror. I love it.
So was the intention always to write and direct it?
Yeah, I've always kind of written and directed my own stuff. It's funny, like I also have a background in visual effects, and I've always kind of thought of it all kind of as part of the same parcel. Because when I'm writing, I'm doing most of my direction on the page, really. Like, I'm making blocking decisions and camera choices kind of in the big print. And I taught myself visual effects when I was in high school because I wanted to be able to write and make films where I didn't have to worry about budgets, because it was like, well, any other indie filmmaker has to figure, if they want a car to explode, they have to figure out how to pay for that. And I could just be like, no, I'll just spend the weekend on my computer and make that car explode. And I think that then in kind sort of trained me as a writer to not shy away from kind of big or crazy or kind of surreal things. So there's a bit of kind of a maximalist quality, I think, to this film, where I was so, sure, like, I really like this premise, I really like these characters, but you can only do this premise once. I want to make sure that we like get every bit of juice from this premise as we can, because sometimes I go to a horror film and I feel, like I kind of might appreciate it or enjoy it, but I sometimes feel shortchanged. There's just not enough crazy horror sequences in it. And so with this, I was really keen to, every 5-10 minutes, I wanted to show the audience something that maybe never seen before in a movie.
And, I'm glad that you had that mentality too, because especially being at Sundance this year, the thing that was on everybody's mind as we were still going through the previous award season was what's going to be the next Substance, because that was on everybody's minds as this gross out horror movie that broke big in a major way with the industry. And when I saw it together, I was like, this is it. I was like, you got two bankable stars here. This is a fun time. It's a premise that, has a lot on its mind and is pretty ingeniously executed in terms of, like you said, I'm glad you brought up the visual effects, because I don't know in some instances where visual effects started and where did the makeup then also come in, because I know that there are some cheat shots where your mind is like, wait a minute, did I just see a visual effect, or was that just really, really good prosthetics there?
Yeah, it's a real.
And I make this motion deliberately when I say that.
Absolutely. There's a real mix of both. Like, as I said, I've got a VFX background, so I was really excited to do something that actually has a bunch of practical effects because it's a world that I completely don't understand. And I don't have the best angle of it here, but like I've got Dave there on the wall, a bust of Dave Franco, and I can't get the camera close enough, but he's got articulated things so that his jaw can kind of move, and that's this amazing photoreal Dave that was made, and he's that prop is in the film for about 1.5 seconds. It's crazy. But then, kind of on a visual effects level, it was amazing getting to work with Framestore in Melbourne, who, as a visual effects nerd, like I love Framestore. Like they are, multiple Oscar nominee winning kind of visual effects house that did our really high end visual effects on the film. And then kind of the bulk of the shots I ended up doing myself because it was such a low budget film where we put kind of like all of our VFX budget into the kind of 14 hero shots. And then, I did like 130 odd kind of smaller shots that, we could get away with because you don't have to pay the director for doing the visual effects, but he's doing them himself. So that's kind of how we kind of kept things under budget. Whilst most of the sequences outside of the ones where it would have just been impossible to do, almost every sequence has a practical prosthetic kind of base.
Mm.
And, kind of on that subject, there were days where Dave and Alison had to be linked, kind of literally stuck together via a prosthetic that we didn't have enough budget to replace if it got broken. So when they were stuck together, and they had to like go to the bathroom with each other. Like, so the sort of things you could not ask actors to do, but they were producers and they were just like, yeah, absolutely, no worries. That's the advantage of working with people who know each other so kind of intimately. It was just such an easy working relationship.
Yeah, and speaking of which, too, seeing as how there are producers on the film as well, like the fact that they're a real life couple has to lend itself tremendously to, oh, we can very easily get some photos of you guys over the years and incorporate that into the film, or later
Yeah.
on, as Neon did, into the marketing. So, when did they exactly like come on board here to like lend themselves as actors and producers to the project? Because it is like one of those things where, oh, you guys are a real life couple. This is perfect.
Yeah. I don't know the exact date they came on board, but I wrote the script about like 6 years ago, and then kind of spent a year or two, attached a couple of producers, and we kind of had another actor attached for a while, and we weren't able to sort of secure the financing as an independent film. And then another script of mine was kind of being passed around Hollywood. This feels weird to say Hollywood. I shouldn't say Hollywood, but like I had a script that like execs were passing around, and that kind of got me some attention. And in the wake of that attention, I had a meeting with Dave, and I knew he liked horror because he'd done The Rental, which I'd really liked, and I was like, hey,
Yeah.
I've got the script. What do you think? And yeah, within 2 days of him being sent the script, Alison and Dave were on board as producers and stars in the film. Like I didn't expect that to happen. I was like crossing my fingers that it would. But yeah, then
Financing
the
comes
script.
together when that happens, I imagine, then pretty easily, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because then it's like, okay, cool. Now we've got stars, we've got a director, we've got a script that we all like. Let's really kind of aggressively take it out to town. And we took
Yeah.
it out to kind of every indie financier and kind of managed to get it up, which was, phenomenal. A dream come true for a first time feature maker. Um, but yeah, like working with them was amazing. They have obviously like history, and you can I think feel that in their performance and feel it on screen. And
I think so,
the
yeah.
the film really demands that they have like an emotional intimacy as well as a physical intimacy. And like I said, when they had to kind of go to the bathroom together, that they were doing things that you wouldn't be able to put actors through unless they were a couple. And even on a just a performance level, like it was helpful that our lead actor and lead actress would go home together every night because they were always prepared and presumably running lines in the car back from set. And we didn't have a lot of time or a lot of money to make this film for like the kind of scale of it. I think we had to shoot the whole thing in about 21 days. So we
Mm.
didn't have a lot of time for discovering stuff on the day or redoing takes. So working with pros like that who are so comfortable with each other, just kind of, and also like genuinely the nicest people you could ever possibly work with. Like, it just made the whole thing actually really kind of like fun. It was like a really fun shoot.
And I can imagine for yourself too, not just because it is an indie film and you want to be as prepared as possible, but there's some really intricate sequences here. I think of Dave in the shower
Mhm.
and how you have to know exactly how you're going to edit, how you're going to move the camera So my guess is 90 to 100% of this movie was storyboarded in advance. Am I right or
Yeah,
wrong?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I storyboarded basically the whole thing. And it's funny, like those sequences. That's actually the stuff that I was least scared of as a director
Mhm.
because that's sort of where I come from, like making kind of sketches and online like short films and that kind of thing, usually without dialogue, like almost with kind of a language of kind of Pixar or animation, whereby I like telling a story without dialogue and making complicated sequences is something I'm like very excited by and think about a lot. The stuff that I was more kind of concerned about as a director was like the emotional stuff. And
Mm.
again, it's another place where Dave and Allison just bringing their talent and years of experience just elevated that. Yeah, everything else I've ever done in the past is either kind of more straight comedy or hiding behind layers of irony. And this was a film that, really comes from a vulnerable place, really comes from a lot of the stuff in my life. And I didn't want it to be sarcastic. I wanted it to, when it gets emotional, I wanted that to hit. And those were the days that I was dreading because I was worried that kind of just my general kind of ironic personality would get in the way of it. So yeah, making the technical stuff that's easy for a goof like me.
Did you have contortionist body doubles for Brie and Dave?
Yeah, just for Alison.
Okay.
Yeah, we had this wonderful contortionist called Gemma, and it was her first film, and she was amazing. Like,
Mm.
uh, yeah, she did the scene in the hallway where there's some real contortioning stuff. That was great. And what was really fun about that is, we had the contortionist kind of come out and do the scene, and then Allison like, yeah, we'll just like try and do that. We have these takes of Allison like doing a really good job, but obviously not being a contortionist. And so then in the edit, you can kind of, well, from this angle you can't see the face, but from this we can see the face, and trying to make it so it feels cohesive. Plus a couple little sneaky face replacements along the way. But like that
Absolutely.
again, that's going back to being somebody that like I'm so you know, I spend so much time alone in a room writing a script, and then I spend so much time alone in a room, doing things like editing or visual effects. And so
Yeah.
to have this kind of collaborative thing where you get to work with puppet makers, prosthetics, stunt people, contortionists, like it was such a dream come true to be able to actually work with these like professionals in all these kind of cool departments that just, is much more exciting than sitting alone being in a room.
The casting of Damon Harriman.
Mhm.
Did you know what expectation, based on his past roles, audiences will be bringing with them to that character?
Yeah, I think so. He's got sort of you kind of he's got a tone. He's got a character that he gets cast as. Or maybe he gets a little typecast. I don't know. But he was really excited about coming on board for this. We kind of moved heaven and earth to get the schedule to work for Damon to because he was booked on these other things and
Mhm.
uh he was a delight to work with. I mean, as an Australian, he's just like an iconic Australian actor who's just like
Yeah,
working. He's like in everything, and also like has worked with like Fincher and Tarantino. Like he's just the man. But without getting kind of too spoilery, for the most part in this film, he was really excited about getting to play a nice normal teacher. Just like he said, man, I never get these roles. I'm always cast as a serial killer, or like I've got to put on some monster prosthetic. Here I get to be a nice teacher in a nice jacket. Oh, it's a dream. And he's so good at it. And it's what's a funny experience that I've never really had before as kind of a first time filmmaker is like a beautiful thing about this movie is that it's allowed me to kind of travel to watch. I've seen this film play in America and in Australia and in Mexico and in Italy, and the audience reaction has always been great.
nice.
But I now get this like little reaction of like there's a moment where Damon opens the door. And there's nothing funny about it, but I chuckle because I'm like, oh, it's my buddy Damon. There's like that kind of feeling you sort of fall in love with these actors, and then when you see them on screen, no matter what's happening, I was like, oh, poor Dave. Like, I'm just remembering, the people behind it, and so it's very fortunate that they were all very nice.
Totally. I know this is an unfair question to ask, and I'm sure you're probably going to give me an answer that includes both of them, but is there
Mhm.
one character in this relationship that you relate to more than the other?
Well, the character that Dave plays, Tim, is much more based on me
Okay.
than the Allison character is based on my partner. But Tim was really a character kind of born out of uh, my insecurities about who I was worried that I kind of was when I was writing the script of somebody that's been kind of pursuing these like lofty, ambitious, like I'm going to be a filmmaker, I'm going to be a musician kind of thing, and then kind of getting into my 30s and worrying that I was that guy that people spoke about behind his back, being like, what, he's the last person to know that he should give this up. And so, when I started writing this, in the first few drafts, the main character of Tim is much nastier. Like he was really
Mhm.
just like me writing who the worst version of me, and then over the course of drafts, kind of bring some lightness, and then Dave really kind of lit him up with some sympathy. So, a guy that's worried he's getting too old and kind of failing his artistic ambitions. Like, yeah, I can relate to that much more than I can relate to the Alison character, who's when I was coming up with the characters, I was like, well, Tim is so inward, all particularly at the beginning of the film, like he's like, I've got to be special, I've got to do this, da 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 da. Meanwhile, as a counterpoint, Allison's character Millie is like, I want to help people. I'm going to work with children. So that was kind of the big contrast there, and the journey that you would hope Tim's character goes on is that he can kind of get out of his own way and realize that like none of that bullshit matters, and actually the most important thing is the person in front of you that you're sharing your life with, and if you can come to that realization in time, this all might work out or not.
That was a better answer than I thought you were going to give because most of the time when I ask a question like that, the filmmaker tends to not choose a side. But I think part of the fun of Together is asking couples, how they feel about both characters' perspectives and, using it almost as a litmus test, if you will, to some degree for their relationship. So it's been a fun movie, I think, ever since I saw it at Sundance. And as more people have seen it, whether it's at South by or wherever else it is screened at this point. And I'm so excited for audiences to get a chance to see it when it finally opens wide. The marketing for this film, I think, has been ingenious by Neon.
Mm,
I think the song choices that they've used, the shot of the eyes, everything that they've done for the marketing for this has been absolutely brilliant. Are
they're
you involved
geniuses.
in any of those decisions, or have they just run it by you and you go, "That's great"?
I wasn't sure. I've never been in this position before. And when we
Mhm.
when we sold to Neon, I was so impressed by their pitch of what they were going to do with the film, and everything that they've told us that they would do has come true in terms of like what they said on that first meeting, like we're going to do this, and they've done it all, and they've been so collaborative. That For example, that new teaser that they just did with the Dave and Allison pictures with intercut with some
Yes.
scary images. Um, Within like 3 days of us signing with Neon, we wanted to get a teaser out into cinemas, and so needed to go to like DCP. So it was going to be out in like several weeks, but we needed to like in 3 days to kind of figure something out super quick. And I was in like just the wake of Sundance, and I had my laptop, and I cut a trailer that was these photos of Dave and Allison intercut with scary images. And Neon watched it and thought, "Oh, this is great. We'll remake this with some time and release it." And that made me feel really kind of great that they have been so collaborative, and they run all of their posters by me and the other producers, and we all kind of give our 2 cents, and it's been wonderful. The thing is though that the things that they're pitching don't really need our comments because they are genuinely just like great from the get-go. Um, and I've heard that that's not the case with other places, that certain other kind of distributors or studios will just spoil the whole film in the first trailer, and kind of it's theirs now, they lock out the filmmaker. And Neon have been the opposite. It's super collaborative. And yeah, kind of going into South by, sorry, into Sundance, hoping that somebody was going to buy the film. I was like, I hope that the marketing team from Longlegs gets this film. That was kind of my
Ah,
thought. And so to end up
yeah.
there is, amazing.
Absolutely. Has there been a particular real life couple? Because I've seen these photos of real life couples, and whoever's running social media for Neon will say together in theaters July
Mhm.
3rd. Has there been one that has like tickled you and like made you chuckle when you've seen it?
I really liked the David Corn Sweat, Nicholas Hoult Superman one from the other day. To be
Yes.
quite honest, I love this stuff that Neon's doing, but it's making me feel old because I look at some of these couples and go, I'm out of touch. I don't know who these people are. And I'll like text Alison and be like, who is this? Oh, Dua Lipa. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, right. Because I'm just an old curmudgeon now, I guess.
So
Again,
now,
I recognize like the
yeah,
two Superman guys. I'm like, yeah, cool.
of course. And so as we wrap up here, wildly successful. I think it's still standing at 100% Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences seem
Yeah,
to
I would
really love
think.
it. I really hope that when it opens, people venture out to see it because it is a hell of a good time.
Oh,
But
thank
I
you.
have to imagine that that early buzz and word has made it easier, I imagine, for your next project, whatever that may be. Maybe it's that script you said you were shopping around before. So
Yeah,
what is
hopefully.
next on the horizon for you?
Well, yeah, hopefully it is that script. It's been amazing. Like I kind of feel like like the sort of like I've just been very like insular and very kind of isolated, kind of doing my own thing down in Melbourne. And sort of since Sundance, suddenly, my emails getting filled up with like, hey, this studio has this script, would you be interested? Kind of like getting the sorts of meetings that are very exciting as a young filmmaker. So I'm not sure exactly what's next, but I'm hoping it would be really nice if it's this other script that I've written, which is something I wrote again sort of years ago, but is a really kind of a one-off, bizarre, kind of sci-fi puzzly sort of film that I think would just will kind of be as kind of crazy and specific as Together is, but just in a slightly different genre.
And if somebody's nervous, you can always say, listen, I'll do 25% of the visual effects for you guys.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Yeah,
well, Michael, thank you for your time here. I really do appreciate it. And I wish
my
you
pleasure. Really
all the
nice to meet you.
success with
Nice
this
to chat.
film. You too.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Take care.